All right, welcome to Ionan's Edge. I'm bringing you my favorite Rosecraft knife so far out of their offerings, the Alenta. Specs on this knife, we've got AR RPM 9 steel on a flat ground, slightly Persian style blade. It is a liner lock with full stainless steel liners. It is running on ceramic ball bearings. It uses textured G10 scales and a reversible deep carry pocket clip. We've got 3¼ inches of usable fine edge on this blade. We've got a scale length of 4 7/8, a tip to tail length of 8 inches, and a weight of 3.8 ounces. Let's jump into the things I like. Overall, this is a cool knife. First of all, it looks cool, right? With this slightly Persian style blade and this really rounded handle, but they didn't try to do anything too fancy here, so I like that. The ergos on this knife are very, very solid. This knife just feels great in the hand. You can get your fingers around it, it just kind of locks right into your palm there, and there is definitely some space here on this knife as well. So it has some nice chamfering here. There's texturing on the G10, and there's nice chamfering on the rear 2/3, so it doesn't feel sharp. Your fingers want to wrap right around it. The pocket clip is designed with a low enough spoon on it, and it's thin enough that it doesn't dig into your hand or cause any hot spots. It sits right here on this kind of meaty, fleshy part of your hand. Perfect. Like I said, even if you have extra large size hands, I have large glove size hands. Here's where my hand fits in hammer grip. So I'm right here on the edge of this with my back pinky. It's not uncomfortable, but there's plenty more room if you want to, move your grip back just a fraction of an inch, or you have larger hands. You're still going to feel comfortable back here on this part of the knife. No problem whatsoever. The AR RPM 9 steel with this slight Persian blade and the flat grind is a very solid cutter. And it's reasonably slicey for what it is. It's not a super thick profiled blade, but they did do the flat grind most of the way up. It's really made, it really shines when you're doing slicey pulling cuts, where you're using the whole length of the blade, and that's where I believe the Persians tend to shine the best. So this has held a good edge through most of my basic testing, and I've had this knife a few months now and used it a little bit off and on. The knife EDCs really, really well. It carries great in the pocket. Yes, there is a little bit of the knife that sticks up, about this much, but mainly it deep carries for the most part. It's not a really wide, thick knife, so when you stick your hands in here, you don't feel anything. It has a very good action. It does fall closed, and it's easy to open with either the flipper or the thumb studs, but it really shines with the thumb studs because it has a fairly crisp detent on it. It doesn't have a lazy detent. It'll power out there, even with the flipper tab. You can't fail this knife. I've tried many times, and it just doesn't happen with the flipper. But man, the thumb studs are money on this thing. So this is way, way more impressive to me than one of their other popular budget price knives, which I'm not that enamored with. So also, I do want to make a point too. This is not a finger choil in my opinion, although I guess if you had tiny fingers you could hold it here, but it is a sizable sharpening choil on the knife if you want to get the knife, if you ever have to resharpen the knife. So there's some material there to move, to move up the blade. Man, why we got a little focus issue there. There you go. There's some material there for you to use to move up the blade during sharpening without getting a smile. So let me talk about issues or dislikes. Yeah, there really aren't any per se, but there are two minor things I want to make note of. So there's no milling or lightening inside this knife. As you can see, straight liners all the way through. That's the way they went with it. There's no milling or lightening. I kind of wish they had done that. They could have taken this knife down a considerable amount in weight with just a little bit of milling on the back halves of both of these scales, and you would have had a knife that was a lot more balanced. It is noticeably handle heavy. Again, not uncomfortable because most of that weight in the handle is back here behind your hands in this rearward section, but you do notice it. If you're holding it like this, you can notice that the knife is handle heavy. And then one other small thing, you know, it's curious that there's no jimping on this knife anywhere. Kudos to a well-designed knife that you can actually get easily. This cutaway allows you to easily get in there and release the liner lock and close the knife, but no jimping on it. It's still very functional. The G10 has good, you know, texturing and contours, but it would have been nice to have a little jimping there and maybe a little on the release. Again, it doesn't affect the functionality of the knife. It's still fun to carry and fun to use. All right, let's do a couple quick size comparisons for you. The first one I'm going to show you is a knife that is not in the same price category, but I'm putting it in here because size-wise it's similar. So this is the Devo Mash, and this is the Rosewood Alenta. So definitely a Rosecraft Alenta. So it's definitely a longer knife than even the Devo Mash, which I consider to be a pretty good sized knife with a pretty good length to it and lots of handle material. Let's compare it to something a little more in its price category, a Civivi Riffle. You can see that this is also much bigger than the Civivi Riffle, which is a very popular knife with very good ergos. One of the things I will note about all three of these knives is they all have very clean, smooth handle designs, even though this one is the most rounded or sweeping. All three of these knives are very comfortable. I like the Riffle for its sweeping handle, where it sweeps back like this. Right, and that feels very comfortable. And this handle also has this kind of sweep back, so it feels a little wider back here and gives you good grip. So let's summarize. At $60, and this is the limited edition one that has the dyeable jade scales. I did dye these deep red, blood red, or maroon if you want to call it that. This at $59.99, this is a Rosecraft I can recommend. Unlike the Mohawk, which some people have raved about and say is fantastic, I'm not a fan of the Mohawk, but I am a big fan of the Alenta. Has a little bit of blade billboarding. I might have liked this RCM 004 back here somewhere on the back of the blade, but overall, this is a fantastic budget-priced knife at $60. I would definitely buy and EDC this knife. It does come in a couple different colorways depending upon which version of it you purchase. But this is a good, affordable EDC knife with good blade steel, AR RPM 9, and solid workable ergos. If you're looking for a longer knife, you've got bigger hands, or you just generally like the look of this knife, the Alenta could be for you. My favorite Rosecraft that they have released to date. All right, folks, that's all I got for you today. Leave me some comments and questions. Don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. And as always, stay sharp, folks.